President Trump saying he will impose a 50% tariff on China. He said that earlier today in the White House. It's the latest move in his ongoing trade war with the country, and it has been wreaking havoc on the consumer electronics industry. For more, we're bringing Gary Shapiro, CEO of the Consumer Technology Association. Just to be clear, there already is supposed to be a 54% tariff that will be levied on Chinese goods as of Wednesday. This would then be an additional tariff on top of that if China continues to retaliate with a 34% tariff against U.S. goods. So given all of that, your members, what are they going to see in terms of increases in costs here?
Well, I'd like to start with the good news.
There's good news?
I'm that type of person. And the good news is that for the next few weeks, you're going to see a lot in sales of people who are going out and buying a lot of stuff. We're already hearing that from everybody. Obviously, it's a huge, huge cost increase. The tariff is a tax. And it's a tax that's borne by consumers and the producers. And they'll figure out their own pricing on it. But you can't get a near doubling of your costs and then just say, oh, everything's fine and dandy and consumers are going to have a great time. The thing is, the companies I've spoken to basically said, assuming the economy stays steady, which is a big assumption at this point, which may not be true, they'll probably still get the same amount of revenue, but a lot of it will be going, obviously their cost structure will go up. There'll be fewer people that will be able to buy at the low end of the market, people who are entry-level consumers, people who have less money. They'll be just locked out of the market and they won't buy. And then that'll affect, of course, and is already probably affecting employment levels, hourly workers, full-time employees. They just can't sustain, retailers can't sustain keeping them. And I think you're going to start, once we get past the sugar high of the next few weeks when the inventories are low to nothing, they cost a lot, you'll see some dramatic changes, I believe, in employment throughout not only our industry at retail, but every industry, whether it's apparel or footwear or so many others that rely on imports. I mean, the Americans have the best economy in the world, or we did until recently. And that's been sustained by the fact that we've done really well. So we've been able to buy a lot of stuff inexpensively abroad, created in factories that we'll never have here. That's not what we're good at. And it'll take a long time to even build the factories we should have here, like shipbuilding and shipbuilding, ships and ships. And so it's a very difficult situation now, not just for our industry, but for multiple industries and frankly, for the American economy.
Right.
And that's reflected in the stock market.
So Gary, let me ask you a question. What do you think that China's going to come to the table?
I have no idea. I mean, I haven't been in China in a long time, but I know they're very proud people, and we can't, some of the views I've heard by people expressing, oh, they're just copycats and they don't innovate and things like that. That's no longer true. Anyone who's been to China recently can see that they're investing in so many different ways, from their factories to the research and development centers. They're starting to become innovators. They're actually very strategic. They have millions of STEM graduates and engineers graduating every year, while we have more in the hundred thousands. They have people who know how to build factories, and we have very limited knowledge in that area. And I think some of the companies, like what we've heard from like Apple, which will definitely invest in the U.S., but is also looking to India, some other companies, they're going to do what's right for their company globally. A lot of these are American companies. We're so fortunate we have so many of them here. But I'm concerned that these tariffs are taxes that will be inflationary. They'll cost consumers. They'll put us back. And at the same time, when we're cutting off relationships around the world,
right,
it's a very dangerous path we're on.
So, Gary, there was a report today in the Wall Street Journal that Apple was going to be trying to move some of its production of the iPhone to India from China, and therefore not eliminate the tariffs, because there are tariffs that are going to be imposed on India, but decrease the tariffs. Are you hearing from your members that that is what they are trying to do? Or is that a luxury that only the likes of a company with the resources of an Apple is going to be able to do?
It's interesting is our members, we cut this deal with China in the late 1990s that we would be good friends with them and we should manufacture there. That's what our government told us. So a lot of our companies went there. And then President Trump came and said, we really shouldn't be doing business with China. We should be going to other countries. So a lot of them invested heavily in Vietnam and Indonesia and the Philippines and Mexico. And now we're being told just a few years later, oh, we didn't really mean that. We want you to invest everything in the United States. Well, you can't invest in the U.S. for multiple reasons. One of which is such an unpredictable political environment where things change every 4 years almost, and there's no consistent strategy or policy. But we have succeeded in focusing on innovation. So companies will do what's right for their companies and their shareholders and their consumers. And right now, the U.S. is proving to be a very, very untrustworthy ally. It's extremely dangerous for the world economy. The dollar is already weakening in just less than 1 week significantly. And we're telling our allies that we're no longer their friends. This is the worst economic situation I've ever seen in my lifetime. It's just not about any one industry. It's about our position in the world with going to a weak dollar. Soon we'll hear perhaps that countries are going to stop holding our debt. That means our taxpayers and our citizens are going to only be paying off interest on the debt. And as long as inflation is high, which tariffs will definitely do, then we'll have high inflation, high interest rates, and our economy and our recession is likely.
Gary, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.